I'm Deb.
Hey, and I'm Karen, and we're here answering all your real estate questions with the same thoughtful advice that we would give our friends. Deb, what is today's question?
Today's question is, should I buy a house in 2023? This is one of the most common questions I get asked at parties. Like I go to parties, but I guess when I'm out. When I'm in front of other people, people say, oh, realtor, should I buy a house in 2023? I hear the market's crashing. That's a whole other video that we'll talk about. But Karen, I know you get asked that question too. So what do you tell people?
Well, I do get asked that question at all the parties that we attend. Definitely buying a house is still a great investment, period, regardless of how we feel the market is doing right at this moment, because we know, again, like you said, it's a different, another video, but things will get better as far as interest rates are concerned. But when you think about buying a house, it stabilizes your payment over the life of the loan. So if you have a fixed mortgage interest rate, fixed rate mortgage, your payment's never going to change. That principal and interest will always remain the same versus renting. You know, every time your lease renews, you have that probability or likelihood that that rent is going to increase year after year.
Yeah, I always think about it. Yeah, everybody's talking right now about the cost of eggs. I saw something this morning where it was a picture of eggs. They cost like $8. And I was like, I don't know where that is. Probably some currency exchange different, whatever. But, it's comforting to me to think I could lock in a cost when everything else in the world is a little bit uncertain and certainly going up in cost. To lock in that housing cost is, I think, a really smart thing to consider doing. And knowing that you can always refinance too. So you can always lower your payment, but it's not going to go up in terms of the principal and interest.
Exactly. And also over the life of over the long term, you're going to end up paying less in your owning your home versus the whole renting. So
right, exactly.
That's just one of the pros.
Yeah. Well, one of the ones that I come up with too, and this is because I'm afraid my dogs are about to start barking. I can feel it stirring in the house. So, but it's dogs, it's pets, it's personalizing your home. I have so many clients who say, I'm buying a house and the next thing I'm going to do is get a dog. And, I'm on board with that. I know you are too. But just that idea of having a space that you can personalize. And I feel like COVID plays into that a little bit too, because in COVID, we were all home. And so you start to look around and your four walls drive you crazy, but also you start thinking about, what can I do to make my space more comfortable in my own? And when you're renting, you can't really do that. Even simple things like painting, most landlords, right. I'm a landlord. I don't let you paint, sorry. But you watch the HGTV and you want to try a project. You can see here the little, is that wallpaper, right?
That is
Karen's shoulder, right? She put that up, and being able to do things like that.
I'm only showing the good side, by the way.
It's hard to get those lines lined up. I get it. So I think that's really a big benefit too, is that if you're working from home, creating an environment, I wouldn't discount that. I do think that there's value in that people might kind of poo-poo it, but I really think there is value in creating an environment that you feel happy in, whatever that may be for you. And it's probably not classic off-white paint like my rentals are.
Or just like hanging a small shelf, because I know some landlords won't even allow that into the wall. So definitely making your space feel cozy. Yeah. That's your sanctuary. I think the other thing too is when you think about investing in a home that is yours, so sorry about, your landlord, but instead of putting money towards just something that you don't own, you are establishing equity in your home. And what that means is that over time, when your house is appreciating in value and you are continuously repaying your mortgage, you are building that gap between what you owe and what your home is worth. And so that equity could allow for all kinds of things in the future, whether that is doing a refinance, like you mentioned earlier, and removing potential private mortgage insurance, or doing home improvements with a refinance, or better yet, taking that equity and moving into your next home, whether you're looking to increase in size or maybe downsize, depending on where you are in your home buying. process.
Yeah, I think if you were to Google home equity and building wealth, you'd find tons and tons of sites to talk about how home building is like the key component, or home buying, home ownership is the key component to building long-term wealth. And so for me, it's, looking at the future and saying at some point you want to retire and you want to have some security. Your home value that you have built is a big part of that. They say, oh, don't treat your home like an investment. I don't know if I agree with that 100%, but it is part of your portfolio, and that's important too, to start that anytime.
Absolutely. And a side
I have one.
Oh, I was going to say, a side note, I've heard sometimes where people have done where they do want the equity as a just in case. Maybe they've got some college, kids going to school, and they want to have just that safety net of having some additional money set aside in case of emergencies. So, and
especially in Monroe County, where we've never, I don't want to say never, but never in my career, right? I've been in real estate 16 years, been through a big recession in 2008, and then, a smaller one, if we want to call that, the kind of end of last year and this year. And we don't see our property values go down. We don't have the wild swings like we see on the East Coast and West Coast. So it's a safe place to park your money. As opposed to a single stock, buying Coca-Cola stock or something like that could go way high and could go way low. It's like buying a bond, and it's a pretty steady, safer investment. So I think that's an important part to consider.
Yeah. Very lucky in our market for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So I have one more, and this is sort of I'm not going to say I'm an economist geek. What I'm going to say is there is a gentleman named Lawrence Yun, who is the senior economist, head economist, king of the National Association of Realtors. And he has such a nice way of explaining things to non-economists like myself, and a lot of eye-opening, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And so I'm going to put up a slide to show you, but basically one of the questions you get, or pushbacks you get from people say, I don't know if I should buy a house, is because of inflation. And this chart talks about how inflation actually benefits debtors. And I know most of us don't want to have debt. I know y'all listen to Dave Ramsey, and debt is bad, but there are certain kinds of debt that just sort of are to be expected. And I don't think you should beat yourself up over, and Dave Ramsey does too. You can have a mortgage. He's all right with that. But the way that this chart works, it's showing that, again, going back to our first point, you have that steady payment, right? So in this case, $1,580 a month, we're making the assumption it's like a $250,000 mortgage, 6.5%. You're paying $1,580 a month on your principal and your interest. And if your annual salary is, in this case, like $6,000 and some change, that's going to increase each year. One would hope. I think that's what we all, want to think, that we're going to make more money. But inflation tends to increase salaries because employers are needing to keep up. And so in this example, the first year, 24% of your monthly income is going towards your mortgage payment. But by the end of year 8 or so, you're down to 18.7%. So it's a smaller portion of your take-home pay. So it's actually decreasing your debt load.
Yeah. And I do want to just make a quick clarification, because I knew what you were speaking towards, or speaking about. But when you mentioned the 6,000, that is on a monthly versus an annual. And so,
and it's net. No, it's gross. Sorry. See, yeah. I'm not an economist.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, we work in gross figures, or gross income. So yeah.
And, but if you want to see Lawrence Yun actually explain this chart, and it'll make a lot more sense, I can send you the link to it, or I can probably figure out how to link it below. That's what they always say on YouTube, right? We'll link it below. I don't know how to do that, but we'll figure it out. Yeah. So I just, for people who want numbers or like charts, because I know some people really like that. Yeah. There is some rationale to buying now rather than delaying, and how it's going to kind of start that ball rolling. Like Dave Ramsey says, snowball effect. It's all good. Absolutely. So I do want to say, Karen, and I know you probably will add this disclaimer in too before we end this, that everybody's situation is different. And so we're kind of giving you the general advice I would give, if I were giving a talk or something like that to a group of people. But I would strongly encourage anyone who's thinking about buying to contact their realtor and their lender. If you're local to our area, please contact us and talk about your specific situation. Because honestly, if you're moving in 2 years, I'm going to be like, I probably wouldn't do it. If you're moving in 4 years, I would give it consideration. If your job isn't stable, we talked about like these numbers work great if your income's going up 3%. So not going up a lot, but going up a little bit every year. But if you're thinking about quitting your job or making a major career change, Karen, what would you say as a lender?
I would say let's pause. Let's not even do not get yourself tied into a mortgage, period.
Right. Exactly.
And that just happened yesterday, like true story. Met with a first-time buyer who was just interested in learning more about what programs were available, and come to find out they may not be here in a year. And on top of it, once they saw the payments and the interest rates and all of that, it didn't make sense for this person at this time. And that's what I said. It doesn't make any sense for you to be buying right now. If you're still here in a year or so, let's revisit.
Yeah, cool. All right. So that is it for this episode of Should I Buy a House in 2023? We will be back with a lot more.
You trust your best friend to give you good advice.
So consider us your best friends in real estate. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
See you next time.